Hey guys, it's Evan again, back with another episode of Existence. So this time it's with my best friend John and his partner Sadie. They have been amazing friends to me, and I'm super happy and grateful that they were willing to sit down and have a conversation with me about some of the things that I've been contemplating and stuff that's been on my mind lately. I really do appreciate the time they took to sit down with me. We were in an Airbnb in Florence, Italy, so we were kind of just chilling that night. And you know they're good friends when they explicitly make you sit down and support the podcast you're doing by making sure you do a podcast with them. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy the episode. And I think it was a fruitful one. Oh, and before I forget, I wanted to shout out my Instagram for this podcast. It's at ExistencePod on Instagram. So if anyone is interested in following that, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to be doing with it. However, I figured it's not a bad idea to have one of those as the young kids are doing. So yeah, without further ado, here's the episode with John and Sadie. All right, and we're live with another podcast. I'm here with my best friend and his partner, and also my friend Sadie.
Hello.
And John. And John.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
What's up? Thanks for having us.
Hey, you're welcome.
We're the gifted people of being the first three on the podcast.
Yeah. No, it's been.
This is the third one.
Well, actually, I had a group podcast, and a lot of people joined in on that one.
Wow, we're fourth, dude.
So we're not special at all to you.
No, you're extremely special. No, yeah. We're in Florence, Italy right now.
Which is super cool.
Which has been great. And we're chilling in an Airbnb. Been meaning to meet up with these people as they've been traveling throughout Europe on their motorcycle. Wow, what cool guys. What's so cool.
So cool.
I guess
so good.
I know what you've been doing. We all know what we've been doing. But anybody else who doesn't listen to this, the one other person who listens to this podcast doesn't know what you're doing. So I guess kind of explain.
So a little backstory before I get into what we're doing. Evan and I started this trip. Well, this trip in quotations. 2 years ago.
What is this? What is going on?
Life is a trip.
Life is a trip.
But we left California in March of 2020, and we went on this grand adventures with 2 motorcycles, with everything we owned on the back of them, and we traveled the states for about 4 months and hit different states, and we actually ended up in Portland, Maine, out of all places, was the last place that we hit in the States, and we got jobs there at a hostel, which was super cool, and that's where
I wonder what hostel was.
Lovely lady.
Hi. Shout out to the Black Elephant Hostel. Coolest hostel you'll ever go to.
Wow.
And also one where you can find love. You know?
That's exactly it. So we Sadie and I messed around, fell in love at this hostel.
You definitely messed around.
At the said hostel. And from there, I kind of convinced her to come on this trip with us. And initially it was going to be the 3 of us. And the next part of this trip was supposed to be in Europe, starting in England and doing a little bit of the UK and then heading into the rest of Europe. And long story short, I ended up doing it. Evan went back home for a little bit, and I continued on. And then Sadie met up with me a few months in, and we picked up the bike. And then now we started in the UK, went through Ireland, went back to the UK, and then went through France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Czech, Austria, Hungary, Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro,
Jesus Christ.
Albania, Greece, and now Italy, and then France again. And so, yeah, we've been traveling by motorcycle for about 2.5 months, I think it's been. Somewhere around there. We're about 2.5 months, which is good because we're coming to an end on the 3 months traveling visa that we have. So that's currently what we're doing. We are traveling by motorcycle, and we can both say that it's been such an amazing, eye-opening experience. And I feel like I'm saying it for the both of us, but it's been feel very lucky to be able to do this.
Oh yeah,
to have enough money to do it, enough time to do it, not really have any obligations anywhere, but just each other, and we're excited to go home too. It's been a lot traveling. They don't tell you. It's like, there's a point where you're like, I want to have a home. I want to be home again and have like the regular schedule again. And we've been kind of detached from that for a while. So I think we're excited for that again. So
yeah,
that's kind of where we're at. We're excited. This trip has been awesome, and we've seen so much, but we're also very excited to go back to the States and create a home for ourselves.
Yeah, no, understandably so. It is insane, what you guys have been doing and everything that you guys have gone through. I know how ready you guys are to go back home and start a life for yourself, and it's incredible. But this kind of leads me into a question that I had a conversation with some of my housemates that I lived with in Portland, Oregon, that what stability looks like, and where stability comes from. Because stability in the typical sense of getting a job or finding somebody, settling down in a spot, like having your shit together, so to speak, doesn't look the same for everybody. So I guess, Sadie, if you could kind of, what would your own idea of stability look like? What is your own interpretation of stability, and where does it come from?
I think stability is kind of interesting because I think stability ultimately is probably a sense of self-fulfillment or just balance. Mm-hmm. I don't think you need to have a certain amount in the bank account. I don't think you even need to have a steady job going. I think it's more about your mental state. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think that your mental state, you can gain your stability in different ways. So for some people, it could be like therapy. For some people, it could be participating in extracurriculars that they like doing. And for others, and kind of for me in particular, I found stability comes from having a sense of purpose and participating in routines. I really love routines. It's one of the things I'm excited to get back into when we have a house, like just the routine of cooking and cleaning and getting ready to go to bed in the same spot every day. It brings me a lot of comfort. Knowing where you're going to be and what you're going to do is very helpful. But I've learned on this trip that you can build routines anywhere if you really want to. We have the routine of packing and unpacking, and even making the same complaints every time we get into an Airbnb and we're 1,000,000 degrees in all of our dark colored gear that we're wearing in the 90-degree weather, where we go, it's so hot, and just peeling it off. It becomes a routine and it becomes comfortable. It makes me feel more stable. But honestly, I think stability, as you said, it looks different for everybody. I'm kind of curious what John thinks, because I think we have very different minds when it comes to things like that.
Yeah. So I think I would say, starting off, like what you guys both said, is I think it's different for everybody. So it's just like your perspective on the subject. I think for me personally, like stability, I don't know, like I think it comes in a lot of forms. Like it comes with like where I'm at in my life, because I feel like stability changes throughout. Like I think it comes with like maturing, like on like a maturity level. And it sounds weird, but like if you're like at a certain age, like stability, like I would say is like if 10 years ago, if I took 10 years ago, I was like 15. Like stability for me back then was just like doing good in school, or like focusing on school, and like, just trying to like, be a good kid, I guess, like to my parents. But like now it's like stability to me is like I like to have like, you know, a certain amount of money in the bank account. Like I want to make sure that I'm, you know, not going to run out of money. I'm not going to run out of time to do things. I'm not going to get into experiences that I am going to be wasting my time on, if that makes sense. I think stability right now for me is just, for right now, I think I've learned a lot from Sadie, and this is going to sound cheesy, but like,
Oh, let it off.
Sadie,
Go off, King.
Yeah, Sadie's my rock. I think this, like right now in my life, the stability is coming from like being able to have this experience with her now, like, and that's my like stability of like kind of like going from there is like starting with her, and like I know if we have each other, no matter where, I'm stable. Like I'm in a good headspace, and like I couldn't say that like a year ago because I
wasn't doing it for you.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like I had different stability back then, and we both know it. Our stability was being able to be on the bike every day and being safe with our gear and being like, hey, we can ride another day. Like that's like, you know, to me was being, you know, that I don't know, and I think that, and I know you asked the question of like where does that come from? I think it comes from I think it comes with like day-to-day life. I think it comes from like where you're at, particularly in your life at that moment, and like what are the things that like what's the foundation that you're standing on? I think that's a lot. I think that would be like the definition of what stability is. What are you standing on that really supports you? And that I think that changes throughout your life. So I think stability comes in a lot of different forms. Yeah. That's what I would say.
For sure. And like you pointed out too, it morphs and forms in different ways as really an evolution of as the evolution of your life progresses, and you experience new experiences and meet new people, and I think a great point you brought up too, Sadie, was you can find it anywhere. Because I mean, I noticed that, and it's like I feel like I have two modes. I feel like I have like a traveling mode and then a in one place mode. I feel as if I probably have more modes than that, but those are the most salient in my life. It's either I'm like in one spot or I'm constantly moving, just like two very different places to be environmentally. So I definitely have like my priorities and what I value in order to keep me grounded while I'm traveling, and I have a different set of priorities and what keeps me grounded when I'm in one spot. So yeah, definitely it's definitely, I think it's just something important to think about, because if you're not really mindful of your own stability or what makes you kind of feel grounded in any sense, you're just kind of in a chaos mode of just kind of figuring things out on the fly, and then that leads to a lot of insecurity. But cool. Yeah, no, that's it's good.
I have since we're kind of on this topic, I have a question for you that I wanted to ask,
bro. Okay, I'm the Look, man, I'm the host.
Well, we're doing it differently here.
Not on this podcast. We have two hosts.
I have one question that I wanted to bring up, and Sadie and I have talked about this, and I think it's a good.
Well, you're about to get real.
No. I think it's like a good. It's an interesting one. What would you say? I want to hear your opinion about what would you say the correlation is between being content and having goals, and based off that correlation, what do you think of a good balance between the two are? And I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a job, right? You have a borderline basic job, making burgers, flipping burgers, right? And you're happy. You're happy there. It pays the bills, you know. But you want this other job that you're applying for. You're going to school for something maybe like I don't know, like a technical job, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, this is going to be a goal that you really have to achieve. Or let's say if it's even like higher than that, like you want to be a pilot, you know, and that's going to take a lot of hours through the plane, and it's going to take a lot of schooling, and you know, obviously it's going to be a lot of money. But at what point should you be content of where you're at, and at what point should you set goals for yourself to try to achieve them, and how should you be happy along the way? Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes sense, and it's actually something I've thought about a while now, actually. I've had this same thought, so I'll try to recapitulate everything I've been thinking. But I think goals are sort of, the way I think of it is that to be as present as you can and to be as in the moment is everything, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that the future can exist. The future doesn't exist, but it doesn't mean the future can't exist. And so that's really kind of like the kind of motto I've been living by. It's not that the future is something that is impossible to be the new present. It just doesn't exist right now. So it's definitely something that is worth considering in terms of long-term goals or trying to achieve something that you feel would be beneficial towards your life. Because what else would the present moment be for if not for kind of finding contentment in the moment, but at the same time understanding that there can be room for improvement as well. It's not that, I mean, and I guess it kind of like depends on your own interpretations of presentness and kind of in being in the moment. One could say that everything is perfect just as it is, and there's really nothing to change. But at the same time, nothing gets done if you're not trying to improve, and that is something that I'm constantly at odds with myself with, is just always seeking the improvement. And that can definitely become detrimental if you let it sort of control your life in a way that you're only thinking about the future and you're never living in the present. So the balance with anything is very, very difficult and hard to come to grasp, but finding some sort of balance there is important.
I agree with everything you're saying. I just kind of wanted to touch on a point where when John and I were talking about this, it was a little bit slightly different in my head, where it was more about kind of this idea in society that you have to keep pushing, which I feel a little bit at odds with. I think we're kind of talking about the phrase, you got to shoot for the stars, or like the sky is the limit. And those are awesome phrases to motivate people if they want or need that motivation. But I was saying, somebody could be working at a coffee shop and love that job. And a lot of people experience a lot of pressure from their family and stuff. Like, when are you going to get a real job? Or like, when are you going to get that job that can get you the nice house? But they might be perfectly happy working there. There's no reason that they should be pressured if they don't want to ever leave that space. So I think sometimes I feel at odd with society pushing people to always do the best and the greatest, when that's not necessarily what people want. They could be content where they are, but they're made to feel like maybe that they shouldn't be.
Do you feel that I definitely agree. And do you feel as if that's more specific to certain aspects of your life, though? Because that is, to be stagnant completely at a state of non-improvement, or even, not even regression, just stagnation. What do you think of that? What is your opinion on somebody who has no goals? They just want something. They just want wherever. I don't even know what even that even looks like, because like, to not want any improvement at all for anything just doesn't really compute in my brain.
I think that, it's great to strive for improvement. And I think that's a goal that everybody has at some point in their life or continues to. I think it's a great way to get yourself to go out there and have new experiences. But I kind of have this mindset, or it reminds me of a quote that was it was about something completely different, but it was something along the lines of, you're entitled to your opinion as long as your opinion doesn't disrespect someone else's existence. And thinking about that type of thing, it makes me think of, yes, it could be really confusing to see someone who just wants to stay exactly where they are. And it might seem wrong, but if they are mentally content, if they're in a place of contentment and that contentment and where they are is not harming anybody, then I think it's fine. If you are in a place of stagnation and your stagnation is harming people around you, like maybe you're not expanding your mindset and you're disrespecting other people's existence, or you are harming other people by not contributing enough. If everybody's putting in a certain amount of effort and you're not, then that's a little bit harmful. But if somebody's found a place in their life where they've set up like a really rigid routine for themselves, they're just super content with, and they want to live that way for the rest of their life, it can be a little bit confusing to see. But I think as long as somebody is happy and as long as they are not hurting anybody in the process, then I couldn't really say that what they're doing is wrong.
I just want to point out too, I think another thing, reverting back to my question about what's the balance of the two, we can look at the two extremes, right? I think it's going back to what Sadie says is, let's take someone who's as extreme as, like you said, that's stagnant, that's content. They're content, they have no goals, and they're living their life. They're happy where they're at. They don't want to do anything else. And we can look at that and be like, you know, number one is like, if they had goals, they can be exploring their options. They can find something better for themselves, you know? So that's like where it's like, it feels weird just not to have that goals. But then we take it to the other side, and the extreme of someone who only has goals and is never satisfied of where they're at. They're just always picking the next goal. It's like they get to one goal and they're like, not good enough. I want to go to the next goal. If you take the two, I think there's I almost like romanticize that like person that's content, because it's like they're just happy, like they're living off of like, you know, the like bare minimum. They're just, you know, flipping burgers or whatever, and like they're happy and they're like, I don't want anything else. And you're like, nothing, you know, like there's no other goals, but there's almost like a special side of just being content and happy, versus someone that's like achieving these amazing things and they're just like, they're never content. They're just reaching for the next goal. So it's like, I think there's an important balance between the two of them. Definitely. Right? But also at the same time, there's people that do both ends. And it's like, if you look at those extremes, it almost seems to me when you take those two extremes and try to meet it in the middle, it more falls onto the content side of being happier. Does that make sense? Like, it's like the people that are content, that are doing the bare minimum, they seem way more happy than these people that are achieving these amazing goals in their life, but they're just never satisfied.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good point. I don't see it as like the bare minimum either. It's whatever they feel is right for them.
Of course.
And that looks like, and it's not even the flipping burgers. It's doing whatever that they feel is right. Maybe they're lawyers. Maybe they are doctors, and maybe whatever. Maybe they have a prestigious position in society. But to me, I'm not even sure. It's just it's a hard thing for. I mean, I know you and I understand this. It's a hard thing to see somebody be without goals, because we are so goal oriented. Like everything we do in life is always kind of reaching for the next step. But again, I feel as if we are mindful enough to. I mean, definitely, it's still a struggle every single day. Like, I'm not perfect in any way. This is also so much of a struggle to be content in the moment. But it is something that we're at least aware of, that there's a balance between these two extremes of, and it's not even, it's hard for me. It's hard for me because like, I know it's almost like being content with goals.
Yes.
It's not even being content with what's everything as it is right now and not having any sort of ability to do anything. It's being content with the striving.
Right.
And it is, it's sort of, it's a weird dichotomy between the two, because one is so oriented towards achieving something that isn't here.
Right.
And when you have that, you're almost forced to not be in the moment.
Right. I think I speak for the two of us. Like, we're very similar in that way, as like, I think we strive best when we have goals. But then I think that takes away from us being content sometimes.
Definitely.
Like with you, like how you and I work, it's like we're always reaching for those goals, but I'm constantly having to ground myself and be like, look at where I'm at, look at what I'm doing right now, you know? Like, I know it comes back to what you said, like being in the moment. I think being in the moment directly correlates with being content, being happy with what you have right now. But also at the same time, like, I'm never going to not have goals. I know the type of person I am. That's like, I think you make a good point too, is like being content with the goals that you have, but being content with what you have right now is very important.
I think another thing to think about when I'm listening to you talk is when we're talking about this hypothetical person, you say it feels weird to think about somebody that doesn't have any goals. That's not really entirely true, right? Maybe they just reached their goal. They had a very simple goal and they reached it. Like their goal was to be able to pay rent and have a job that they feel good about, and they hit it and they're like, nice, I'm going to stay right here. Or maybe their goals are just small enough that you don't feel like their goals. And I think that's something like, that's kind of what John and I were initially talking about, the shoot for the stars idea of goals, where things can get lost. Like maybe their goal is like, I want to plant marigolds in my garden this year. And like, that's their main goal. And that's what they're looking forward to. And some people's goals are so much bigger or loftier where it's like, I want to travel to Japan. And like, it's like this huge goal and they're saving up and they're trying to like learn some aspects of the language and they're just very different.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't say it's bigger at all.
It's not bigger.
Different.
It's just different. But it reminds me of the comic series Calvin and Hobbes, which really shaped me. Shouts out to Calvin and Hobbes. It really shaped me, but one of the pieces that stuck with me, the comic strips, was Calvin is talking to his stuffed tiger Hobbes, and he's like, if you could have anything right now, like, what would it be? And his stuffed tiger Hobbes says, I'd like a tuna sandwich. And Calvin gets so upset, and he was like, I would wish for $1 billion and a nice car and this. And then the next panel flashes over, and Hobbes is eating a tuna sandwich at home. And he looks really happy. And he looks at Calvin, and he says, I got my wish. Yeah. And Calvin is so upset, but it's kind of like setting small goals and realizing that you can be content in just that. Yeah. And I'm sure Calvin still wanted his $1 billion, but it really stuck with me of like, small goals are enough. And setting realistic goals for yourself is really rewarding. You can still have those lofty ones, of course, or the ones that might be a little bit further away. But I think realistic or like smaller, and they're not smaller, but I think more mundane goals don't get enough props, I guess. For sure. I would say they don't get enough credit. I think those type of lesser, or not lesser, but smaller goals, those are the ones that are really building blocks for the larger ones. Like I tell people that all the time. It's not that you just all of a sudden get the courage to go up and go sell everything you own and go travel for, months on end. Like, it's just like small goals of like, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do this today. And I'm going to build on that. Like, oh, I did that. I accomplished one thing. I can do the second thing. I can do a little bit more. And you build this up and you build a habit of doing bigger and bigger things. And whatever that means for you. It doesn't mean travel. It could just be, maybe you want like you said, like a huge garden in your backyard. Like you start off with one plant and then you build on that. And it's all about getting in the habit of building on the previous steps you've taken before to build a more beneficial or more content life for yourself, kind of reaching for things that you know you want, or that you know you would find pleasure in doing. But
that answers it.
We've solved it.
Yeah, we solved it. No, I think that was a good. I don't know. I just feel like there was a good correlation that I guess we didn't think about until we brought it up. We're like, yes, I mean they really do tie into each other, because if you don't have one, you're kind of lost without the other. You know.
And this brings me to sort of another sort of point of relation between this and another question that I have for you. What when I think about humans' human potential and what every individual has to offer, everybody is so different. And I think about this in ways of each individual's ability to do certain things and the predilections that they have. And I don't at all think that there is one type of intelligence, like people are smarter than another person, but I think people have certain abilities that are more adapted to one certain aspect of life than another. Like, I'm not going to be a mathematician because my mind can barely play speed. My mind just doesn't compute that way. And when I think about other people who are really good with children, I don't have that. I didn't get raised with a bunch of children around me. Some people did, and they are really well adjusted. Like when we think of our friend Lena, was a kindergarten teacher in Japan for like 10 years, and she's amazing. But I don't have those sort of abilities, but there are certain things that I do have that I'm more well suited for and have more of a potential in. What would you say your biggest potential is in terms of your own ability to do something that you feel as if would be well suited for you?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, man. I think that's what we're all trying to figure out. What else we'll say before I talk about like what I feel is I think kind of what you're starting the question with is I think we all play our role, and I think we don't necessarily need to have this like extraordinary gift to play that role.
No.
And I think it's important to realize that as simple as being like a garbage man or something like that, like we are so reliant on just that one individual. And if like, and if that's your role that you have, or like that's the ability that you are playing in your life, then like that's so important because I think we need each other for that. So like you said, it's like if you're really good at math, and we need you as a mathematician, and everybody in between then. So I agree with that at that point. I don't think it doesn't need to be as big. I think because what I'm trying to say is before I answer my question is like, I think that I get constantly in my head where it's like, I need to be this great thing. Like I need to be really good at science, and it's like, that's not necessarily true. So for me, what I've always found, and I think you know this, I've always been good mechanically. I've just been mechanically inclined on a lot of, you give me a box full of gears and I'm going to figure out what the hell it was before, like I have this like drive in me that I can't explain really, that just like I'm fascinated with gears and like mechanical trinkets, I look at stuff and I want to take it apart to see how it, see all the parts in it, and then to see if I could put it back together the way it was, I'm so, I don't have the ability to create things. I'm not a,
you do create things in
a sense, but I think but what I would say, what at the core of where that comes from is I don't have the ability to be like an engineer and create something. It's more of I have the interest of like looking at these, inventions and like really understanding at the core how everything works, like down to the last part, down to the last screw, I think that's what intrigued me. So I think that's the role I play, is I think that's my ability, is like I could use that in so many different aspects, and I have no idea which one I want to be in, but I think like, I always joke about this with my mom, is like if we ever went back to like the old trading thing where it's like, what's your ability? Like if you're good at making bread, I'll trade you by fixing your car, like that would be me. I'd be fixing everybody's car because like that's what I'm good at. And I think if everything went to shit, that's the one thing I'd go back to, because I work well with my hands, and I'm intrigued with mechanical parts, and I might be the first person that figures it out, but I'll spend all night and all day long, weeks on end, months on end, to figure out what it is, because I'm passionate about it, So that's what I would say.
One loaf of bread for one oil change.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, so if anybody needs the oil change, I just require some food.
Please.
But what about you, Sadie?
I think I'm gonna do a little bit of a cop out. I think I'm gonna do like a teacherish answer. I think maybe if I have.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Surprise! Surprise!
Oh my gosh! I think if I have an ability or something I've recognized in myself, it's self-expression. I think I grasped pretty early on that being yourself is the best way to be. But it's really hard to do that. And like, I still struggle with it, but I was definitely the one wearing like weird clothes and stuff during like high school. And John and Evan just spent about 10 minutes before this podcast calling me weird. So
all in good fun.
Gone away.
I couldn't just say, let you put that out there.
I still hang out with them, so I like them enough. But
it's a tolerance.
It's a tolerance.
But I think self-expression has been the big one for me, and something I learned throughout high school, which was really cool, is I was just doing it for me. It was what was easiest, and I figured I would find the people that I work best with if I displayed who I was. And I'm going to quote another childhood thing because that's all I can do. Shel Silverstein has a poem called Blue Skin, and it goes like, she had blue skin and so did he kept it hid and so did she. They searched for blue their whole life through, then passed right by and never knew. I read that when I was a kid. I read it again when I was an adult. I thought that was super important. Like, you won't find your people until you show who you are, because they won't be able to find you. And I had a lot of kids come up to me in high school that were a little bit younger than me. And by a lot, I mean like 2, but it still felt like a lot. And I went to a very like prep boarding school too. So dressing out there was a little bit weird. And they said like, I just want to thank you. Because I really felt like I was able to be more myself because of you, which was really weird because I didn't really know them, but they just saw somebody who was deviating a little bit from the norm and thought, oh, I can do that too. And I recognized that was something I had done, deciding to go to this school in the first place. As I was looking around and everybody was wearing like boat loafers and everything and the khakis, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I was like, this isn't really my vibe. And there was one girl in the whole school who had like a pixie cut. And I was like, oh, okay.
We love pixie cuts.
I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can be that. And I think that's what made me want to be a teacher. And specifically, I'd like to be an art teacher. And I think that's
You are an art teacher.
I'm going to be an art teacher.
You have your master's degree in art teaching. You're an art teacher.
Art education.
Shout out, support the arts.
Yeah. But
this episode...
Fund the art teachers, please.
This episode is sponsored by art.
I feel like art is all about self-expression, to me at least. It's an outlet. It doesn't matter whether you think you're good or not. Like if doing like scribbles really helps you, that's awesome. If doing like big paintings really helps you, that's awesome. Sculptures, anything. I think it's about expression and being able to get something out there. But I think that's what's so exciting, and that ties back into everybody's potential. Like, I think potential is, in a way, their self-expression. It's how they want to express themselves. It's how that they kind of communicate with the world. So I don't know. I'm really excited to be a teacher and kind of help or encourage students to express themselves and be there to help them figure out like what they like. And even if they don't like the arts at all, I'm just excited to help them figure it out, I guess. So my cop-out answer is a little bit that self-expression is just the expression of your potential. That's what I got.
No, that's not a cop. That is not a cop-out answer in the least. That's all I got. No, there are so many points in there that I resonate with, and I really do have a lot of. I feel what you're saying a lot. Especially the poem by Shel Silverstein. I've read that poem before, and I love that poem. And that specific point of learning how to express yourself is such a hard and difficult lesson to learn, and to have that innately, or to have that come to you at an early age, is not something that I could say that happened to me. And I know, John, it didn't happen.
Nope.
And it is awesome to see, and I think it's something that I really appreciate now in younger people. Not that I'm like so old, but like
no, you're an old man.
I'm an old man. I'm 1 foot in the grave. But no, like when you see like little kids and even teenagers that don't care what other people are thinking. When I was a teenager, I cared a lot, and I cared a lot for a long time after I was a teenager as well. Like I just cared. I thought what
I thought there was a cool, and I think a huge lesson I came to, a realization that I came to. I remember the specific moment I had when I was where was I? We were in some city, and I was chilling on the porch, and I looked out and I was like, what I think is cool is only what I think is cool. That's not what most people think is cool. Cool, it doesn't exist. That's what I came to the realization of, and it was a lot of self-discovery and finding what I liked and what I gravitated towards, and to do that in a way and to express myself in a way that didn't care what other people think, and didn't care what other people think in a way that didn't harm anybody. It was just my own self, whatever I felt in myself that I thought was a good way to express myself was a good way to express myself. There's no bad or good. However another person feels they should express themselves is a good way to express. That's cool. And I think to me, cool now is just, if you're yourself, that's cool. It doesn't have to be anything that I like or anything that I gravitate towards. It's just whatever they like is what they like. And it's such an awesome, and it's such a hard thing for so many people to learn. So no, that's not a cop out at all. That's an amazing thing to have. And your point about art, it brings me to another question that I had a conversation with my friend Dorsey. She and I had this really big conversation about art, and whether or not I would love to know your answer on this, Sadie, being an artist and an art educator.
Soon.
What do you think? Can anyone be an artist? And what exactly is art? Because, and I'll preface this with when I think of subjects or areas of interest that no making out of my podcast, please. They just went to kiss, so I gotta. I didn't just say that randomly.
A small peck on the cheek.
It's just so lovely. When I think of like areas of interest or like STEM subjects or like different subjects or aspects of life that aren't necessarily correlated to the stereotypical art, painting, music, drawing. I don't know. I'm not an artist. I can barely come up with things that are sculpture, different mediums of art. What I could totally see as if somebody who does mathematics thinks of their craft as art, and I could totally see how somebody who is a philosopher thinks of philosophy as an art, or and writing is definitely an art. It's a way to formulate your words and articulate yourself in a way that expresses emotions and feelings and conveys a message through the medium of words and language. So I'm confused. Help me.
I'm a little confused where this went. But to
what is art, and can anyone be an artist?
Yeah, to answer kind of the concept of what is art, that's a little bit of an unfair one to throw at me. Because
look, you're our best hope here.
Philosophers are still debating this and everything, but this is something that we talk about just in general art class, and it's definitely something we talked about just training to be art educators in my cohort, because it's a tricky question, and I think everybody has a different idea of the answer, but I think that the way people express that can be very damaging to others. One of the things that we learn in the art room and that means so much to me, is very important, and something I intend on teaching actively, is the idea that there's no, and this is where it gets tricky, like there's no correct form of art. There's no form of art that's better than another. And there's the really annoying phrase that all art teachers tend to say, which is, there's no such thing as bad art, or anybody can be an artist. And when you're a student trying to make something and it's not working, it's so frustrating to hear those words. you're like, I wish you would shut up, and you're being too optimistic.
Because it's not constructive.
Yeah, it's not constructive, and I think, yeah, it's just really frustrating. I remember being super upset when I heard those words. And as I went through art education training, I was like, oh, damn it, I'm going to be that art teacher that says those things, because it's true. There's no such thing as a piece of bad art, and there's no such thing as, like, if you want to be an artist, you can be an artist. But I think being an artist kind of comes through the intention of what you're making a little bit. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean, and you were kind of talking about like other subjects can be considered art. Absolutely. But I think being like a stereotypical visual art artist, let's say, oftentimes you're declared an artist when you declare yourself an artist. When you say like, I am making these pieces as art, or I am doing this for this reason. I think being an artist kind of comes from there as like a profession or a title. Being an artist in other ways is kind of this nebulous thing. But the other thing about like there being no bad art, I think is important. And something I talk to kids about a lot is objectivity, where art is super objective. And if you're trying to make something and it's not coming out how you want, which I think everybody has experienced at some point in their life, you have this really intense vision in your head and you try and make it come true. And I'd say 98% of the time, it doesn't come out how you thought it would, or how you visualize it in your head. And it can be really frustrating. And you think this is bad. And it's, you know what, it's totally fine if it's bad to you, but it doesn't mean it's a bad piece of work. There's always going to be someone out there that thinks that it's amazing. There are so many pieces of work that I absolutely adore. And then there are other pieces. I have trouble with abstract art. I have trouble making it, and I have trouble admiring it, actually. Obviously, whenever like my students would make an abstract piece, I'd be like so excited because I'm just so proud of them that I think I have more of an appreciation. But I remember learning about like Kandinsky, and they threw up a picture of one of his paintings on the board, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I was so done with it. I was like, this is silly. Like, it's just lines and color, and like it's just a mishmash of everything. It didn't feel like anything to me. And then a kid who was sitting right next to me was staring at it, and I could see the awe in his eyes. And he was like, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. He wasn't joking. He was so into it, which is when it clicked for me. I was like, oh gosh, like art is so subjective. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, someone's going to love your work. So you can't really say it's bad because there's no like bad or good art. It can be bad or good to you. You're allowed to not like your work. You're allowed to throw it away if you want. I'm not going to be that teacher that's like, you can't put it in the garbage. But I think that's a little frustrating. And the other thing about art too, and this kind of happens in literature too, is like this concept of like the death of the author. Like once a piece of work gets out there, even if the author isn't actually dead, it's up to interpretation from the person viewing it. So if somebody writes a poem and it's like the curtains were blue, we're allowed to be like, oh, that means like the inner struggle within the person. And even if the
sad curtain.
Yeah, even if the author comes up and they're like, actually, I just said they were blue.
They were just blue curtains.
I thought that visually looked nice. Like, as a reader, you can just be like, no, like this, it means this to me. Like, they essentially become a ghost. It's up to your interpretation, and that's what's so cool about art. And it's the same for visual art, which I think is why it gets so tricky as to the idea of like, what is art? Because somebody can look at something and consider it art when that wasn't the intention. It's just like a mishmash of things. Or somebody can look at something where the intention was art and they're like, no. So I think that's why it's so hard to define.
Yeah. No, definitely. I feel the same way. I feel and that was the conclusion I came to in the conversation I had, was it's really if your intent behind it is artistic, then it's artistic. It's a piece of work that you've created, and if you view that as art, then it's art. I don't see how if somebody says that their piece of science is whatever, their chemistry is not art or is not is art, and somebody says no, it's not. That it doesn't really compute. I'd say it most definitely is. If your intention is that it is a piece of work, then it is. But I think it can be. It's just so ambiguous, and it's so interpretable, where it becomes very difficult to kind of ascertain exactly. You can't pinpoint it. It's something elusive, and I think that's what makes it so cool, because there's so many. You can do everything with it. It's art's on the mind. We just went to the UFC, and
It was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Also, you can spend like 2 days there.
You can spend 2 days there.
Huge.
I feel that with a lot of museums.
I know.
I'm just running through them.
The crazy thing about being here in Florence too, though, is that that's just one of like there's so many museums here that are phenomenal. Like, I was just looking at reviews and pictures of these places, and it's crazy. Like, the people that have been through here and the art pieces they left is pretty truly incredible, just in this one city.
Oh, definitely, for sure. All right. All right. Time to get serious, guys.
Super serious.
It's lightning round now.
It's lightning round now. What's your favorite color?
We gotta.
This guy.
We got warmed up.
How much? All right. Look, I don't mean.
What do I have? I don't know.
Look, at this point, I'm too afraid to ask you. How much? How would you describe death, and how much thought do you put into it on your daily life?
Evan. Ready?
No, go for it.
I'm sorry, this is just always on my mind, so I need to talk to somebody about it.
I'm sorry that death is always on your mind. I grappled with it when I was small, and then I decided I didn't like it, and I just moved on.
Yeah,
It's simple as that. No, obviously I haven't fully moved on, and I do contemplate death probably maybe more than other people do. Like, I was talking to both of you the other day about being on the back of the motorcycle, and it's awesome, but I definitely get a little bit more anxious than John does. He's the one driving. I'm just sitting on the back. I have a lot of time to look around and think about things. And I revealed the other day, which I thought was pretty normal, that I kind of look around at the terrain and I think, if I was flung from the back of this motorcycle, like, would I be impaled? Like, would I hit rock? Is it a good place to roll? I think about all those things, which is a little bit morbid. I contemplate death in that way, or like, what if I'm terminally ill? I think everybody occasionally has those thoughts.
Occasionally, or always.
Or like every day. Or like, if I die tomorrow, am I happy with where I'm at, type of thing. But for me, I think they're more fleeting now than they used to be. I think the concept of death really scared me when I was little, partially because the people around me, I grew up in a non-religious household, kind of like an agnostic household, or I don't know, we just didn't talk about it really. We were definitely like supportive of other people that had different beliefs, but we just didn't have them ourselves. But my close family around me were Christian, and they were the people that would tell me that I should be religious or I would burn in hell forever. So I used to be really scared in that way. I used to be scared of death under the like kind of Christian concept of hell. And then later in life, I kind of just determined, at least for me, and this is where my mind's at, and I think this is what brought me peace, is I don't have any idea what's going to happen to me after death. I can just do the best that I can to like live a good life and a moral life, not because I want something to happen to me in the afterlife, if there is one, but just because it makes me feel good to be good to others and to be kind. I just want to live my life the best I can. I don't want to push myself to make it perfect or anything. But for me, and kind of what I'm hoping out of death is that it just ends. I think I fear the concept of consciousness after death. I'd like to think of like the kind of spiritual like soul thought, but then that kind of makes me worried that I'll exist after death, and I don't like that thought. I hope it just goes dark. But I like to think of the fact that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. I think that's the thought that always gets me, because we're just made of energy. Like, that's what's keeping us going is we're just like a bunch of particles. We got energy flowing through us that gets us to think things and use our body, and that's awesome. And when I die, I want to do it in a eco way. You can do like eco burials, where you get
It's
like
a very Sadie
wrapped,
way to die.
you get like wrapped, yeah, like wrapped in burlap and like, kind of shallow grave. You get to just decompose. I'd like to decompose the way everything else does in nature. And I'd like to give the energy back, which we all do eventually, at least in our bodies. You decompose, you become something else. Like fungi eats your body and it creates like fertile soil, and then things grow out of that, and then things eat that, and you just go back into the ecosystem. And I actually find that to be a really peaceful thought. And I think I just kind of arrived at the fact that I like that thought and I don't feel like I need to think about it further because I'm never going to find out until it comes. That's kind of where I'm at about death. John?
Yeah.
John, please answer.
I'm about to solve
Please
death.
solve it. Please, for everyone's sake.
Yeah, no. Definitely no. I have no idea.
God damn it.
I don't know. So I think I'm kind of along Sadie's lines of like I don't think about it too often, and that really has to do with my past, which you guys both know. My dad passed when I was 8, and I think that was like such a huge thing for me. Like it was definitely like the worst thing that's ever happened in my life to this day. Like I just couldn't wrap it around. And I was such a young age, but old enough to where like I understood what was happening, So I think it really changed the way I viewed like death. I think
For sure, definitely.
So I would say like almost in a like it calloused me in a good way on some aspects. As I think after that happened, like I would hear about other like relatives dying or like other family members dying and stuff like that, and like obviously I was still distraught, but like it seemed like I nothing could top what I had gone through, and I think that kind of made it more like solidified for me of just like death is death. It's coming for everybody. We never know when it's going to happen. Like my dad was 42 when he passed, and it's like, I was too young, and it's just one of those things. It's like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're loving, caring dad, like you can pass the next day, who knows? So I think I learned at a very young age. I processed all these things. And I know you're kind of going through this, like what is death and like what does it look like?
That's never gonna stop.
Yeah, I know.
That doesn't stop for anybody ever.
No, you're right. But I would say that I processed it very early on, very very early. I was forced, and when you're 8, I would say most 8-year-olds are not thinking about death like that intently.
No, totally.
I was,
for sure.
So I think I had a lot of time processing that at a young age, and I think that really calloused me. So I think like how I've been up to that point is I really haven't like it hasn't really bothered me at all. I know that it's there. I acknowledge it, and obviously like I'll be the first to say like I'm not I'm not given tomorrow. I have I could pass out in a few minutes from a heart attack. Who knows,
Please don't. I know we had a lot of salt today. We had a lot of salt today.
But
shout out to Italy and their salt.
And their salt, they really do with their salt.
It's delicious though.
They got their food right, but I don't know about their health.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say that I'm grateful in that way because I feel like it really doesn't put a big burden to my life because I think there's more important things to be focusing on. So I think that a big part of it. And what I also say is what is dying? Like what do I see? What would be dying? I would hope in best case scenario. I'm not religious, and I would say that the only basis that I can go off of is the experience I'm living now, and the experience I'm living now is when I was 1 to 4 years old. I was living, but I can't remember much. Like I remember small fragments of my life, very very few. But, you know, once you get to a certain age, you're like, you start like, you know, having memories of things, and then you kind of just grow into this consciousness. But yeah, like I would say, I for some reason have a feeling it's going to be like that in reverse when you're dying. I feel like if I die of old age, which I hope that's, you know, that's what everybody
That'd
hopes.
be the gift, Tom.
Yeah, I think that kind of I've seen it with you know, relatives, family members that, you know, get to that age, is like you can tell they're like slowly like being forgetful, and like they're still there, even like even other people that are at the verge of dying, like they're, even when they're like really with it, like I for some reason I have this feeling that like when you're that age, is you know what's going on, but you're only remembering fragments of it, and then you pass. I think that's the end of it. Like, you know, who knows? That's the big question, right? But I think the way I look at it is the only way I can look at it is what I'm experiencing now, and what I've experienced when I was a kid was that slow drag into this life, and I think it's going to be a slow drag out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be, you know, from nothingness to
It doesn't make sense, but I understand what you're saying.
It's from nothingness to consciousness to
Consciousness to nothing.
so slowly no consciousness to nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's what I see dying. But, you know, there could be a million other cases of me dying, and I would hope it'd just be instant. You know, I don't want to be in agony or anything like that, but I don't know. I don't, who knows what actually happens when you're dying? Is your life flash before your eyes? Who knows? But I like to think the one that makes me more content about thinking about those things is just like my consciousness is slowly like slipping away from me, and then it just ends, like having small fragments of my family coming to see me, and then I, you know, pass. You know, I think that's dying for me.
I have one last thought, which is, as a person who doesn't actively believe in consciousness after death, I think something that brought me comfort as like, I don't know what you'd call it, like the die-e. Like if I'm thinking about my own death, I've always thought of it as kind of like a non-issue. Like if I die, I die. You know, you can't control that. But what I've noticed is that dying is more about the people around you. If you're the one that died, it's about the people around you. Or if somebody that you love dies, it's more about you. Like if I don't believe in consciousness after death, like they're done. Like they don't have to worry about it. It's more about like the pain of people surrounding you. Which almost makes it feel like if you're going to be the one to die, it's kind of a relief, you know, like you're done with your stuff and then other people have to process, which I think is actually a really important piece of life, is experiencing that loss. And it's a terrible one, but you know, dying's the universal experience aside from being alive. So I think it's something that really unites us and makes us, you know, value what we have. But I think that's also what makes death less scary to me, particularly, is I kind of consider it like, cool, like done, nothing else there.
Yeah.
I think a point is like you have no room to feel anything. You know, like if you're dead, you're dead. Like there's no, oh, I was taken at such a young age. It's like, you know what I mean? So
I wish I could have lived longer.
I think that like brings up a good point though. It's just like, you know, if you sit there long enough and think about death, it is terrifying because you're able to think about it. You're able to think about this just being nothing anymore. But we have no idea what that's like because we aren't nothing.
Exactly. No, like I said, like I was talking about last night, I think it's Epicurus who said, where death is, we are not, and where we are, death is not.
That's a
so
good
there's
point.
nothing to, it's not even conceivable to think
Exactly.
of nothing if we or something. I mean, that brings up my second part of this question is, I mean, bringing up the topic of consciousness and how consciousness is, or death is the end of consciousness. What do you think consciousness is now? If there is nothing, then there's clearly, if we know anything, and I think this is kind of the question that I really kind of got me into this. We're contemplating consciousness are getting very interested in consciousness and what it actually is, because if we know anything at all, if we can answer any question, it's that something's happening. There's clearly an experience to be had. If whatever that experience is, whether or not we're in a simulation, whether or not this is baseline reality, whether or not we're in heaven already or in hell, like whatever you want to believe about anything,
we can all agree.
We can all agree that an experience is happening right now.
So would you say that's what consciousness is?
What is that?
Do you want to answer?
I'm just going to do a short one. The philosophical theory that I always found, and I bet somebody's already brought this up, that I have always found infuriating, which I find most philosophical theories to be, just because there's so much for your mind to turn over. But kind of the one I couldn't argue with, and kind of the baseline thing that you're saying is I think, therefore I am. Like, that's the baseline. Like, that's the one thing you can't argue in a way. It's like something is happening. Like, even
the lights are on.
Yeah. Even if
what does that mean? I don't know.
Even if like because I'm the one that's speaking and I'm the one that's experiencing things in my own head. Like, even if I'm the only one that exists and you're all figments of my imagination, something is happening. Something's having these thoughts. And you and I actually had this conversation we all did the other day around like a card game where like I don't particularly care, and maybe that's shutting down your podcast a little bit. I think it's important.
Wow, Sadie.
And that's the end of
I think
look, man, I don't care.
I think it's important to like explore things if you're interested in them, and I think that's what makes life like worth living, is like exploring the things that you care about. But like, we talked about, I was like, oh, would you care if your life is a simulation? And we kind of talked about how, like, if you knew, it would kind of change your perception of your life, so you'd care to that extent. But, like, I don't care if my life is a simulation. Like, I'm still experiencing it as it is. If I never know, then I never know. Like, I'm experiencing something. I'm kind of vibing with it. So,
It's going all right.
All right. we can't argue that, like, consciousness isn't happening to some extent. But I don't really care in what format it is, in a way. I'm happy with where it's going.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily, the question isn't necessarily the contents of consciousness, it's the consciousness itself. But I am in complete agreement with, it doesn't really, I don't feel this way, but I understand how someone could come to the perspective that it doesn't matter, because this just is what it is, and I can't control that there's anyways.
Yeah.
So whether or not it's anything that I may or may not want it to be doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect what I already feel right now.
Yeah. I think I'm going to tap out for a little bit, because I think where I get stuck on this is because I get stuck on like the actual philosophical things where it's like, well, I can only argue about my individual consciousness because it's the only thing that we know for sure. Exactly. I get stuck in that. So I'm going to let you and John talk about this until I feel like I have something to say.
I think it's what you like prefaced it with the question is that whatever we're experiencing, I think that's what our consciousness is. So, and we can all agree that something's happening, like you said. So I think where that
we can all agree, or just I can agree, or just you can agree.
Yeah, I don't know.
Am I even talking to anybody?
For reals, though.
Wake up.
I don't know. I think I think that's the thing, is like however we're perceiving individually what's going on right now is like there's something behind that, and I think that's the consciousness we're talking about. And like we can't like formulate anything to like show you what that is. It's just. I don't want to be like the cop out of it. It is what it is, but it's like it's the basis of everything. It's the premise of like how we're living our life, is to have thoughts and to have this experience, have these feelings, have this like imagery, to perceive things, to question what this is. Like there's consciousness is the start of all of that. Like the consciousness is what brings to life us questioning things and living our life and asking what the hell is going on in this world? How did we come here? If we look at like, biologically, like if we look at us as a species, I think like, like we're the most advanced species on this earth, and like because of that we have this consciousness that we can perceive things, and I think we struggle with that because we have nothing else to base it from, if that makes sense. Like we only have each other, and we can all agree that we are experiencing this with each other, but we don't know what it is. So I think consciousness is the building blocks of what we are, if that makes sense. Like,
do you think consciousness is fundamental to reality, or is it a byproduct of physical?
It's a good question. I think
matter.
I think if we didn't have I don't know though, because like, what is consciousness? I don't know. I have a.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. I think if we didn't, I don't know. I would say that if we didn't have consciousness, we'd be robots in a way. Like I think consciousness gives us the ability to take this experience and to like really think about things, like, and to like store this somewhere in the ether of consciousness, whatever that is like we're able to store all this data that we're perceiving, like that's like our file download, I guess. I don't know. Obviously I don't know, but I don't know. I think it is important.
I don't expect it to be answered either.
Yeah, I think it is important. I think it is important that we have. It could be a byproduct. I don't know. I think it's. Like I said, I think it just goes back to it's the reason why we're even questioned in the first place is because we are conscious of what's going on right now.
Yeah. No. Totally.
Because if not, it would just be living. We'd be looking at each other and fucking to produce more, and we wouldn't give a shit about anything else. We just eat and fuck.
Yeah. Well,
and shit.
Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
You gotta bleep those out though.
Yeah. Mom, if you're listening, right now I don't know who listened to this podcast. No, yeah, it's kind of that concept of the philosophical zombie argument where you could have humans, us, roaming around the earth, doing everything that we do as humans as we do now, with no ability to recognize awareness. And so what is the point of consciousness then? It's like the hard problem of consciousness is, why does anything have to be correlated with experience at all? Why does the color red need to look like the color red? Why does the taste of vanilla need to taste like vanilla? If we can do all the things that we already do and be productive and reproduce and proliferate, and why doesn't anything have to be correlated to experience?
Right. I think what kind of going back to what Sadie said, and I think there's an important thing to gain from it of not being like a cop out of it. It's just like it is what it is, so like let's not think about it. But like maybe that's the beauty in it. Maybe we'll never know what consciousness is, and like we're always going to be questioning. There was no denying that we're gonna question everything. But I think there's also like some beauty in like not knowing what that is. Like that's what's so amazing about this life. Like that's what's like, holy shit, that's like we're perceiving this, we're alive, we're downloading all this data, we get to see things, smell things, taste things,
For sure.
And I think like that's the beauty of it all, is just like that we are in this unique experience that only a few are sharing at one point in time, and then it's going to be over in a few years. Like that's what's special about it, is just we're never gonna know, but that we're riding on this wave and just doing it together.
Better get to be doing what you want.
Yeah, just get on top of those goals that we've been talking about.
I'm curious though, like I haven't heard about the philosophical zombie kind of theory, but do you think it would be possible for us to actually perform all those tasks without this concept of consciousness, or what were you saying, kind of just like awareness of like what has happened? And
yeah,
do you think that that's even
I think
possible?
a philosophical zombie is possible.
Like just theoretically, if you were to play it out,
yeah.
Like, do you think that it would be possible to achieve and do all of the things that we're doing without?
I think my innate sense is yes. So that's what makes consciousness such an interesting question as to why is it there if we can do everything. without the input of experience? Why do we have to experience something in order to do something? I can pick up this can of Coke in front of me and set it down, but I can do that without knowing I'm doing that. The function can still be performed. Why do I have to know I'm doing it? I don't. I kind of, like I said, it. My gut reaction is yes. I feel like it could be possible. I'm not saying I know, but I think it could be possible. However, I feel as if maybe the only way for me to even do that in the first place is to think that I should do it. And
yeah, I'm curious what would like drive the function
what would be
of
the
you
driver
performing
of that?
tasks without
Exactly. Like why is like, I mean, you think about sexual reproduction is why do we want to reproduce so badly? What is the driver of reproduction? Is because we have this like innate sexual arousal or desire to go proliferate the human species. And so I do understand that there seems to be some sort of function of a driver. There seems to be some sort of need, and maybe consciousness is that need or that kind of the root of why people do things or why anything happens in the first place.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think that. I think also to bring up is like, couldn't you argue that like consciousness, to be able to perceive things and not be a mindless zombie, is like the reason that you do things is because you get to perceive it, like that you know that you're doing it, and like you base a lot of your actions off of like, oh, I'm picking up this can of Coke and I'm going to be setting it back down. Yeah, we can do that, but like that also alters what else we'll be doing. Like we would still be able to do the same functions. I agree with that, but like if we didn't have consciousness, we wouldn't be doing necessarily the things that we want to control. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. Like we're in this vessel and we're able to control it wherever we want to go. And if you were mindless, you could do all those functions, but it would be sporadic. It would be, it would be random. And like with the consciousness, we can be like, well, the way I perceive things, I want to do this. So I want to pick up this can of Coke,
Yeah, but then it goes in the question of free will and why.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, I think it's the vessel. It's the starting vessel of like being able to choose the things that you want to do. Yeah. Like you said, free will comes into that too, I know.
I guess I'm curious, like if we're imagining something like without consciousness that's performing tasks, would we imagine that to be like purely instinct driven? Like, is there anything you can relate it to? I guess I'm curious because I feel like sometimes when people talk about consciousness, they talk about it in relation to just people. And they might give like examples of like insects that have know how to do things based purely on instinct. It's not like they're getting taught or whatever, but I'm one of the people that believes that like most living things contain consciousness. So I think it gets harder for me. Like if we were imagining ourselves to be performing tasks without consciousness and we said like, oh, like it's replaced by instinct, right? Like let's say we're just fully instinct driven. I still think consciousness is like a function of instinct, if that makes sense. Like we need to be conscious of our surroundings in order to survive. Like if we're just talking basic survival, like we need to be aware of our surroundings to know that like the lion's gonna try and get us, and like remember where the lion was so that we don't walk around that way again. I don't know. I feel like even if we were to talk about like it being part of like instinct or just like a basic biological drive, I think consciousness is built within like our biological needs.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that kind of brings up the point of, I guess, something that I've given some credit to is the concept of panpsychism and the thought that all consciousness is fundamental and that everything in existence has some sort of consciousness endowed to it. It doesn't mean that
it could be completely different than ours.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean that the consciousness
an
ant feels is the same as the human brain understands consciousness, but also it can take place in the smallest particle of in existence. There's something that it is like to feel like a particle. There's something that is like to feel like an atom. It's something. I mean, there's problems with that, like the combination problem. Like, how does that escalate? How does that grow? Like, how does one consciousness form into like a higher state of matter and consciousness? Like, but it's all.
That's trying to be like scientific, but I think that's what's the why it's such a big question is it's like we can't pinpoint it like biologically, scientifically. We can't pinpoint this consciousness.
Yeah. And to kind of transition here a little bit,
How long are we talking? This has been.
Yeah, I know. I kind of want to wrap it up for you guys.
No, not that. I'm just saying. I feel like it's been flying by.
No, yeah. Oh, an hour and 18. How much are your personal? So I mean, obviously, like death and dying and existence, and it's all heavy topics, and we all don't want to think about that all the time. How much? I mean, you guys both obviously have your hobbies, your interests, your personal. Their personal ways of getting excited about life and doing things that you want to do. How much of your personal hobbies and sort of passions are correlated to your overall mental well-being?
Mine are very, very attached to my mental well-being. Kind of what we were talking about earlier is like art as a form of self-expression, or just the ability to have self-expression is very important. I think for everybody finds their own way to do it. And I think it's a big part of just like coping mechanisms. When I first went to therapy, shout out to therapy. It's for everybody.
Shout out. This episode
everybody
is sponsored by therapy.
It's not that everybody it's not that everybody needs therapy. It's that everybody deserves therapy. But
I don't know if I agree with that, but please.
Not everybody deserves therapy.
Everybody I feel like as if everybody needs therapy.
Yeah, but
How do you graduate from therapy?
Look, guys, I graduated. You did it.
You won at life.
Like
you
Lily.
no longer need therapy. But when I first started therapy, I remember my therapist asked about coping mechanisms, and she asked me like what mine were, and I listed out like 5 different ones, and most of them were things that I just do in my everyday life that are very important to me, and then a lot of people have, I think now assigned as like attributes of who I am as a person. So I think they're very intertwined with me. So like art is a form of therapy. You know, sometimes I do it just because I want to, but it brings me joy to do it. It could be crocheting. It could be making a painting. Sometimes I do it because I feel like I need to.
And you're already so good at all the art that I have ever seen. You're like, oh, this was just, I'm like, I can't do that in a million years. I just whipped up this sweater yesterday.
You know, like there are things called ramp paintings, which I learned about at a pre-college program. They're super fun. I encourage you to look them up if you need to get some stuff off your chest. But I also do journaling. I found that to be really fun and cathartic, and I love reading through them. They're a great way to, you know, kind of see yourself progress. Warning that you might cringe at yourself a lot, but that's part of how you knew you grew. So it's good. So that's a coping mechanism. Baking can be a coping mechanism for me. It's not really one I utilize all the time just because, you know.
Enough. I don't think any of us bake enough right now.
Yes. No. And it's, and I'm so excited to bake again when we're off the road, and dressing myself is one of the ways that I cope and one of the ways I express myself. It's really important to me. I've talked to John about it actually a lot on the road. I didn't realize how important it was to me.
Yeah.
It makes me feel a lot more whole and in control of myself.
Definitely.
And it feels silly to be like, I don't feel like fully mentally sound unless I can put like 16 rings on my finger every day. But they're all things I've collected, like a little crow collecting shiny things, and they make me happy, and that's worth it. So I think my hobbies are super, super intertwined with my overall state of well-being and happiness. And one of the things I love and one of the things I've decided to do for the rest of my life, hopefully, is teach and learn. And something I'm super excited about that I learned about, at least if you teach in public school, is usually your district, you get funded to take one class of your choosing. I think it's every semester or every year, which is amazing. Not only do you get to help others learn, but you never have to stop learning yourself. And I think that's amazing.
For sure.
And I think learning and growing and striving and having goals and having a purpose in your life is super, super important to well-being, at least for me. I actually really like work. I don't think everybody likes work. And I know that there's a lot of stuff out there about not living to work. And how, especially in American culture, it's super ingrained to the point where it can be unhealthy. But personally, I actually really like it. I think it gives me a good drive. And I think it gives me a sense of purpose that keeps me going.
For sure. Work looks completely different to a lot of other people as well, though. It's not just 9 to 5. It's
Exactly.
a purpose. Yeah, for sure.
I've definitely been very lucky to have jobs that interest me. And that... Yeah, but shouts out to Black Elephant Hostel in
Co-owner
Portland,
Black
Maine.
Elephant Hostel.
Apply there during the summers. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Look at John did it, and they found love.
And, yeah, we found love. So go
You
to Black
too
Elephant
can
Hostel.
find love.
But you're not supposed to date the customers.
Yeah. What's up with that?
But very, very important to me.
Great.
Yeah, very important. And that's it.
Ditto.
Yeah, no, I think what I would say about it is just like there's the direct correlation with your mental health, with your hobbies. I think hobbies have to do a lot with our individual self and what interests us the most in life, because those are what our hobbies are. It's an expression of ourselves, and it's an extension of ourselves. And I think with that brings us comfort and contentness and creativeness. It's a blossom of all the things that we find joyful in our life is these hobbies, because we all know we need to we understand the importance of money. We understand the importance that we need to work and stuff like that. And we can create a lot of good work environments and a lot of good atmospheres to be mentally fit or mentally healthy in our lives. But I think even more so, the most important things are our hobbies. So I think, of course, like they have a direct line into our mental health, because if we don't have hobbies, I think we would get to a point where we just think we're aimlessly going through life of just this one-way track to just be successful, to make a living, have a family, and then die. It's like, it's all these hobbies in between. Maybe your hobbies are just being social and having friends, and like that's your hobbies. I love going out and having a drink with my buddies.
That's always a cop out. I'm like, what do you like to do? I'm like, I just like to hang out.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, but it's funny because it's like it could be as simple as that. It could be as simple as, and you could talk to anybody. It's like if all they say is I just like to go get fucked up with my buddies, it's like those are their happiest times, dude. You talk talk to British people, those are all their happy times.
That's the British people.
Shouts out to British people that have very high drinking problems. But tolerance. Sorry. I forgot. But no, I think hobbies can come in any form, but it's really your true interest in life, because you're doing these things for free. You're not for free. You're doing these things with your own time, which, we all understand the importance of time in our life. We're only gifted so many hours of the day, hours of our lives, and I think we choose to use those hours to do these things that to someone else, they can look at it objectively or subjectively and be like, you're wasting your time on, making a knife. You just go out and buy one at a store, and it's like, yeah, that's not the point. Like,
don't start arguing with a person with a knife.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that.
Or an almost knife.
Or an almost knife.
Even a
knife in progress.
even a
look, if they know how to make knives, just don't argue.
No. Don't get into this conversation with them. But yeah, no, huge influence. I mean, I think that if you strip hobbies out completely in someone's life, their mental health goes way down. I think there's a huge correlation between the two.
For sure. Does food count as a hobby?
I think everybody. Hey, actually, I was about to say, I think everybody's hobby is eating, but we do know
somebody that shall not be named. Dorsey.
Dora.
She's gonna be mad. I think
that's the one thing she's not even mad that we call her out about the food. She's gonna be mad that we call her her real name.
I think she's my only listener at this point.
Yeah. Hey, it's Dorsey.
Way to offend my only listener.
Dorsey, if you're listening to this, Shammy Boya.
It's Boya.
Boya. That's funny.
Last question, and it's an easy one, guys. And we're done. What? And you guys are no longer subjected to my
last question is easy. Is God real?
Does God exist? And where can I find him? What are you most excited to be listening to right now? Music wise.
Yeah. The new Joji album.
The new Joji
album?
album?
I'm so stoked, dude. I'm so excited. Mm-hmm. He just released 2 singles. That means he's coming out with an album.
The glimpse of us.
Oh, so good, dude.
It just stabs you.
I know. You say like you're like, Josie's pretty good, but like he's all right, whatever. I don't know.
He's good.
No. But I will say like my obsession with him is more than the average person. I don't know why. I find his music so comforting. It's one of those musics that like it's always a go back to. It's always like background music. There's like very few artists that have background music. It's Blink-182, Frank Ocean, and Joji. Those are like our top. Maybe Mom Jeans now because I'm getting like super into them. But Joji is like huge comfort for me, and the new album I am so excited for.
Yeah, sweet, awesome. That's great.
Yeah, new Joji,
love it.
Shout out to new Joji. Go listen to him.
Sponsored by Joji's new album. I wish, Jesus.
This isn't an easy question. You lied.
No. It's just what you're excited right now. Just right now, like that's why it's prefaced with right now because it's such a hard question to be like, what's your favorite artist? Like, what's your favorite song? Like, just what are you excited to be listening to right now? Wasn't my question. Shout out to Gab, my friend, who came up with this question. She comes up with the best questions.
I don't know. I'm gonna say, and this is an old song, and you're gonna know this because we listened to it before when we lived together.
Wow, way long ago.
Yeah, I'm still really into the song "Push" by Fog Lake.
Fog Lake.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the context of the song is super depressing.
Yeah,
but
song.
The sound is so epic. It's just I was telling John the other day, like I've been listening to it for months, and it's the one song I don't think I've ever skipped. I will listen through the whole thing.
Yeah.
I just think the sound to it is epic. It really takes you through an adventure. And it's at the top of my liked songs on Spotify because I pulled it up in a panic when you asked me that because I was like, I
saw you pull up your phone.
Yeah, I was stressed. So I'm just gonna say Push, but with honorable mentions to Petey as an artist.
You're welcome.
Love Petey. Yeah, thank you for the introduction with Don't Tell the Boys. I love Petey.
Petey's so
and
That's the anthem of our relationship, by the way.
And
I'm glad to be the facilitator of this.
And Julia Jacqueline, who will rip your whole solo open. Shouts out to Julia Jacqueline.
She'll just take it and throw it out the window.
Mm-hmm. I love her for that.
Most beautiful way.
In the most beautiful way.
Love it.
Awesome.
What are you most excited to be listening to right now, Evan?
Right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow, really put me on the spot there, guys.
Well, that's what you've been doing the whole time to us.
I'm going to revert the question back to you, our host.
Okay, 1 second, guys.
While he's doing that, Evan and I went to the Ziggit concert this year, music festival, and Tame Impala fucking killed it.
They killed it.
They killed it. If you haven't seen
he
it,
killed it.
he killed it. Yeah. Okay. Whoa. Yeah, I do understand that he's one person.
We do it. We are well aware.
But he does have a band come out when he plays the concert. But no, I would say the most incredible part is he's obviously an amazing artist, but his light show next level.
Next level.
So if you ever want to see Tame Impala, just freaking buy the ticket. It's so great.
Go. Oh, the light show.
So good.
Incredible.
Even if you're in the very back and you barely see them, the light show in itself is amazing.
Most excited role model. I saw him at Seagate as well, and really
is it
good.
one guy or
one
a
guy?
band?
Yeah,
oh,
one
okay.
guy.
I didn't know. I've heard a couple of songs. He's pretty good.
He's from Portland, Maine. Shout out to Portland, Maine.
Oh, really?
He is. Yeah.
Interesting. Sweet.
That's what his Spotify bio says. Minimal by Role Model. I think that and Hello, solid songs. Those I don't skip right now.
I know a few songs. Good. He's good.
Really, really good. Really good. They're just kind of like sad and uplifting, like sad and exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm excited about. Well, thank you guys for being on the podcast.
The thing I'm the most excited about listening to is your podcast.
Yes.
Shouts out to your podcast, and congratulations to anyone who made it through this whole thing.
You guys have been the longest running guest. It's been an hour and a half.
Oh, so sorry.
No. I'm sorry. I'm apologizing to you for having to put up with me and my questions.
We literally could do this. We've been doing this our whole life, dude.
I guess there's a reason we're literally traveling together.
Yeah, that speaks a volume in itself. That we're just randomly show up in Greece together, and now we're in Italy because we want to all be together. So,
cool. Thanks, guys. Love you both.
Love you very much, man. Hey, I just want to say too. I really hope, and I know I said this earlier, but I really hope you continue this. This is something special, and like no matter what happens, just continue on because this shit is so cool, and the fact that you get to do it with like anybody you meet is like the coolest fucking thing. Seriously, like
thank you.
I hope you know that like you're gonna get to be able to have so many conversations with this. So
that's the goal.
Yeah,
that's why I'm doing it.
No, good. Keep on keeping on. Don't let anything stop you, man. Honest.
Thank you, and that's why I keep you around, John. And that's why I love you so much.
Love you, man. We love you.
Love you.
Say it to me.
Sadie's being forced to say that she loves Evan. So,
all right, bye.
Bye.